Officers, good morning.
Who's this woman? Her name's Chelsea, an assassin.
Hey, listen, you shouldn't call me that. I only kill those who deserve it, you know that.
Welcome to MovieStrange. I'm Cult Curious Ralph, and I'm here with my friends Drew and Uncle Al.
Hello.
What's up, everyone? Hey, remember to click the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.
Wow, Al, way to hit that right at the go. I love that. Get these people going, right? We've been doing this a little bit while. Now we need subsubscribers. Well, they call them subs, right? Subs. We need subs.
That's what
right?
the kids call
money.
That's
Ralph.
the kid call it. All right, so as everybody knows, I pick 4 words, and we pick the film. Each of these guys gives me words, and I pick them. Our words from last week were supermodel, superheroes dropping babies, nympho, communist, hijacking, voluptuous. Both great set of words, I got to say.
Yep.
But I picked this one. Supermodel, superheroes dropping babies. Turns out to be an Uncle Drew joint. I mean, not an Uncle Drew, a Drew joint. I got Uncle Al and Drew. I get confused sometimes. Drew, what's the film?
I mean, I am an uncle, so that's legitimate.
I am too, actually, now that you mention it. So, what's the movie?
The movie Uncle Ralph is 1993's The Heroic Trio, which is right smack in the middle of the golden age of Hong Kong cinema that started probably mid to late 80s and ran up until the Chinese takeover of Hong Kong in 1997. And it is one of my favorite ridiculous movies. And I am really curious to know what you thought of it. So if you want to show the trailer first or however you want to play it,
let me do that. I'll show the trailer. I will agree with you. It was ridiculously fantastic. But here's the trailer.
Oh, good.
Holy cow, that film is batshit crazy. Oh my God.
Is.
That trailer is amazing. I mean, it's okay. Anyway, go ahead. Give us some info.
Well, it's funny because that trailer is full of all sorts of crazy stuff that you see in the movie, but one thing it doesn't show, which is one of the things I think that makes people either you'll dig this about the movie or it'll put you off. The changes in tone are nuts. I mean, like there's stuff that's slapstick humor followed quickly by like really serious consequences of violence, followed quickly by outrageous melodrama nonsense. It's all there in this movie that's like what 85 minutes, 88 minutes. We'll talk about it later, but there's a couple different cuts with some content that was cut. We'll talk about that. But this was it's funny. I guess this is really the first Hong Kong action movie that I ever saw. My friend Val, hi Val, he turned me on to this movie when I was in college. It was one of those rented on VHS from the local video store up in West Philadelphia, and I fell in love with it because of everything that you saw in there and everything that I said about the tone and the craziness. And these movies weren't made for a lot of money, but they were made with real heart in an industry that is basically gone. There are still plenty of Chinese filmmakers. There are still filmmakers that made these movies that are still making movies, but it was really from a specific era. And especially the action, it's a lot of wire work and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And a lot of the people that made those types of movies went on to make not necessarily direct movies in Hollywood, but to do action in movies like The Matrix. All that wire work is by Yuen Wo Ping, who's one of the guys who did a lot of the wire work in these types of movies and directed movies and stuff. So there's just an explosion of talent that's continued to pay off for moviegoers for the past 30 years or so.
Yeah, and Michelle Yeoh gets the third billing in this one, or Michelle.
Well,
I'm sorry.
You have to remember that when this movie came out, these three women are three of the biggest stars in Asia. Michelle Yeoh has gone on to become a big star around the world, including Oscar-winning movies like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. She was in a Bond film. She's a wonderful actress.
Right.
Maggie Cheung has continued to do a lot of different work. She's a model and an actress. She plays Chat, the cocky thief catcher, the one you see in the trailer who goes flying on a barrel, which she looks surprised even though she made it blow up. So
yeah,
she was in a movie like Olivier Assayas's Irma Vep, which is a very different kind of movie. And then Anita Mui, who plays Wonder Woman, she's the one you see with the gray mask running across the power lines in the trailer. She was a huge singer. They called her the Madonna of Asia. A lot of the songs in the movie are her songs. And so this was like a movie with three giant movie star women in this big movie. Unfortunately, Anita Mui died at age 40 in the early 2000s, I think, from cancer. So that's someone who I'm sure would still be a huge influence on the movies and in music. So this is like seeing the three biggest movie stars of any era in a giant movie that you would immediately know who the three of them are. So
yeah, I loved it. It was nuts. The cut I saw was the dubbed version, which normally I don't watch the dubbed versions. Normally I want to see the subtitles, but I have to say the dubbed version added just a layer of kitsch and gloriousness that I didn't expect, and I absolutely loved what was going on.
Well, I honestly watched I had never seen this film before, but like I've watched this movie twice. Once I watched it with the subtitles, and honestly it was weird. It was flat, and it like befuddled me, and I didn't know I felt like I was missing something. And then when you had texted, "Oh, it's hilarious, I'm watching the dub," then I went back and watched the dub, and I'm like, this movie's great. So like I feel like there was something lost in translation on the subtitling, and like the vocal delivery in the dub enhanced the film rather than detracted, I think. Yeah,
no. You mentioned Miramax or Harvey Weinstein every time you talk about this film. What did he have to do with? Did he just import it over here, and did they do the? So he brought it over here. I don't know if he did this
specific one, but he was one of the guys. Harvey Weinstein, Dimension Films, that was run by his brother Bob. They brought a lot of these movies over for usually home video release more than theatrical release. But what they would do is they would cut them up. And Harvey was known already as Harvey Scissorhands. And what he did to some of these movies, as far as altering the cuts, is a good example of that kind of stuff. Now, this movie, though, some of the movies that they changed for American release, they wanted to take a 2-hour movie and say, we got to make this 85 minutes. This movie was 88 minutes long, and the American release version originally is about 85 minutes. And I have both versions on DVD. It's funny, the one that's the edited version is actually the one that's from Hong Kong. It's a more recent release that has the movie and its sequel. And those are cuts for content. This was a movie. It wasn't, I don't know if you guys have heard of Category 3 in Hong Kong movies. That's like video nasties. That's like the movies that are the craziest and like genuinely like disgusting gore and crazy content and all that kind of stuff. This wasn't that kind of movie, but there are a couple of things in the movie. And if you've seen the edited version, you're already talking about a movie where you see babies thrown around and die and all this crazy stuff. But there's a scene where Evil Master, we'll talk about the plot in a minute, but Evil Master's henchman, Cow, he has his finger cut off. And he looks at it and eats it. And towards the end of the movie, I'll talk about it at the end of the movie. There's another scene when they're fighting the villain at the end of the movie that it's quite graphic. And I could see audiences anywhere around the world saying, "Hey, maybe that's not for me." But this is a movie that it's funny. It still looks kind of rough even on DVD because it's an older, low budget movie, and the more resolution you give it, the more you can see the wires.
Oh my God. All I could see was wires. Yeah,
but it kind of doesn't matter because
not one.
They're not trying to hide it. I don't know if you've seen like Once Upon a Time in China or Fong Sai-yak or really any of the Jet Li movies Choi Hark directed, any of that kind of stuff. I mean, the people in those movies that are genuine athletes and martial artists and stuff, they don't move like real people. You're not supposed to think someone can actually move like that. And this movie, The Heroic Trio, is full of stuff like that. Like people just say, "Okay, I have to go now," and then they literally step up into the air and float away and all that kind of stuff. So
spinning motorcycles and walking on electrical wires, and everybody's doing whack. And like you said, when the movie starts, that very first scene where they're looking at the house, and the agent, the real estate agent, steps on a board and ends up the board gets stuck on his foot. And I'm like, oh, is this? And it's like comedy, total comedy. This guy's flopping around, doing
really broad screwball, silly.
Totally broad. Things are falling down. I'm like, oh, this is what we're in for. I'm not going to be able to deal with this because I already know that it's going to be some kind of wacky superhero stuff. But as soon as the first time Wonder Woman shows up and they start screaming, "Wonder Woman's coming," I got hooked. I was like, this is working. There's something wacky about this. She comes in on the thing, and it ends up explain the plot a little bit, and then we can dive in some details.
All right. So, and it's funny you guys talked about the dubbing versus the subtitles. The two versions that I have of the movie have two different sets of English subtitles. They're not huge differences, but they're both clearly inadequate. And I presume that the English dubbing is the same, sort of not quite getting everything about the Chinese language across to the viewer. But I normally say dubbing is by far inferior. But I think what you guys experience makes sense. It's so goofy and crazy that it adds to it's zany. It's a zany, wacky movie in a lot of ways.
I think for me, like I don't know Chinese, and I don't necessarily know their intonation, and I haven't seen a lot of Chinese films. So if they're making jokes, it's hard to hear that when they're speaking Chinese, and then you have like a flat subtitle that doesn't really indicate that there's a joke there. I think that's partly my problem with it.
No, that makes sense. And plus, these movies are released in Cantonese or Mandarin. So you could arguably even say there isn't one original soundtrack to the movie anyway. So it's designed for an international audience. It's designed to have different things. So anyway, the story is that someone is kidnapping babies. They are disappearing. They're not being found dead or anything, but they are vanishing. I mean, like a dozen babies, 18 babies. And one of the babies that is in danger, because there's a threat, is the police chief's baby. So the police chief wants to get his baby protected. And his top detective is the guy that you meet at the beginning of the movie, where he and his wife are looking at a house to buy. You mentioned the real estate agent. And his wife turns out to be one of the three superheroes, which the detective doesn't know. So essentially the movie is these three women that have a shared past. They come together to try to find out who's stealing the babies and save the babies. And the babies are being kidnapped by a character whose name is not really revealing as to who he is and what he wants. He's called Evil Master. So
Yeah.
it's not shocking.
Yeah.
But basically, what this guy is doing is trying to steal babies because he wants to make a new emperor for China, which apparently has to involve magic and kidnap babies. And he has to kidnap a lot of babies because one baby somewhere is destined to be that. And I guess he figures if he grabs 20 babies, he'll get one of them. It doesn't really make that much sense. However, there is a lot of political commentary you can read in the movie because the whole idea of China resurgent and having a authoritarian rule over the city and all that kind of stuff, that's what people feared in Hong Kong in 1993 as the takeover was coming in 1997. So there's a lot of different elements of the movie that I just don't get when on my first watch because that's not how I grew up. That's not my language, like all those things. And yet it still has so much to offer. So the movie is about these three women that become allies and fight to what you think is save babies, but really to save the world because it's that kind of movie.
Well, as you say, plot is sort of a funny way to put this because there's about 8 zillion things going on here. Okay. And he throws everything in the kitchen sink. So you got the scientist making the invisible robe. That the evil guy is trying to get the invisible robe, and there's that whole foreshadowing or the whole backstory, which I hate, but in this case, I guess I needed it, of the sisters who are climbing mountains with their dad, and one of them falls, and ultimately we know what happens to her towards the end of this film. There's the big giant train that busts through the I guess the police station or a mall. I can't quite figure out. No, hospital. Hospital.
It's a train station. Cao, the evil master's henchman, has taken hostages, presumably to lure the women out.
Oh, so his hostages are at the train. I see. I even picked that up
at the train station. That's the scene where you see him. It's like he's got hostages and he's killing people to give urgency. Yeah. He's got I don't know what you'd call it, a flying guillotine. It's basically
it's a basket you stick on your head, and these knives take your head off.
Right.
I mean,
so he can throw it like on a lasso and take your head off and make all the other hostages scream. But yeah, that was just like Inception. The train suddenly appeared. And
well, I was thinking Silver Streak. I mean, that's almost.
Oh, there you go.
It's a copy of the train that comes through in Silver Streak. Yeah, and like you said, people just all of a sudden get up and fly away and go off to the next scene, and scenes are kind of connected, but they're not. And everybody has their own agenda, so everybody's trying to prove something. Wonder Woman and her cop husband, who he doesn't know who Wonder Woman is supposedly, and the young millennial girl, what's her name? The one on the motorcycle. The young.
Yeah, that's a Chat, the thief catcher.
Right.
Yeah.
But the thing that made the voices they picked for these people is what helped me, right? Because you could definitely, the woman doing that young girl's voice was pretty good. All the guys sounded suave, and like everybody has that kind of hushed, suave. It just even when the guy's the husband's got his finger on the mine because he doesn't want the other guy to blow up the mine.
Trying to
there's like bombs going off everywhere. It's wacky, but loved it. Al, there was a little gore in here. What's that?
What's that?
There's a little bit. Say that again.
I was frozen for a second.
No, you're moving now.
Well,
you look great.
Back.
Yeah. Hello. Not much gore in this, although that baby did drop its head on a nail. We didn't see it. It was off camera, but oh my God.
I think the one thing that surprised me about this, this is a superhero movie, but the villains are actually violent, and you see violence. Like the one guy decapitates people with his flying nets. The babies get hurt. There's I feel like it's a bit darker than your typical superhero movie. Like you wouldn't necessarily see that in a Marvel film, or
no, you wouldn't see any of that here.
I mean you see like in the Dark Knight, like the Two-Face blows up Maggie Gyllenhaal, or maybe it was Joker. I can't remember at this point, but like you don't see the actual.
That's when
violence.
Joker created Two-Face. Yeah, that's the thing, is that there's all this, like, if something really bad happens, that'll create somebody else really bad. In this movie, there's already bad stuff happening.
Yeah,
and the villains are already as bad as you can get,
and they're not afraid to show it.
This baby's already missing. Babies are already missing. They're like 17 babies are already missing once we drop into the movie. right?
Well, there's a thing about these Hong Kong movies. I don't know exactly what it is, but like this has literally babies falling out of the hospital that Wonder Woman has to rescue. That's the first scene that you see her, and she's throwing babies around and catching them on ropes, and she's saving the day, which is great. But it's still a lot of babies in jeopardy. And Hard Boiled with Chow Yun-fat, it's one of the biggest Hong Kong action movies. That has a whole sequence where he has to have a running gunfight in a hospital while holding a baby.
Right.
And at the end of the fight, his leg has caught fire, and the baby urinates and puts the fire out. So there's a lot more. Babies and how you can use them in the movies in this era than in some of the comic book type movies that we've seen in this country. And I'm fine with that. It doesn't need to be everywhere because, again, as you said, the thief catcher, she basically kidnaps a baby to try to bait Invisible Woman, who is the one who works for Evil Master, because they don't become three allies that work together till the climax of the movie.
That's true.
And the baby that she kidnaps, as Uncle Al said, I mean, the baby, she drops the baby, and the baby lands on a nail. You don't see the nail in the baby's head or anything, but you see the blood on the nail. You see them take the baby to the hospital, and they say the baby didn't make it, which is a big moment for the thief catcher. You've described her as the millennial because she's the cocky young character, but she kind of reevaluates her attitude and her life because she did something brash, and a kid actually died, which again, you're not really going to see that sort of thing in the American version of these kind of comic book type movies.
Oh, really?
It's not based on a comic book, and it feels like that. So
yeah,
I mean,
people freaked out when Superman broke the bad guy's neck in the Superman film. I mean, can you imagine if a baby got dropped by Iron Man? Iron Man steps on a baby, let's say, crushes him with his iron suit. How would that go over? Not so good, right?
Not so good.
These guys, they're throwing that baby around, especially, and also the two babies that get thrown out of the hospital room. I mean, it's just some crazy shit going on in this film. And again, I loved every second of it. It's like I want to see the sequel if there's a sequel. I just find what they do incredible. And like go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say there is a sequel. It's called Executioners. It came out the same year. What you would expect the sequel to the movie to be, because at the end of the movie, they've saved the day, and we'll talk about the end of the movie shortly, because it's the most ridiculous of all the ridiculous stuff in the movie is pretty much the ending, which is as it should be. But at the end of the movie, the three women, they still have secret identities, but they're in the news. That's the other thing. This world, people seem to know that there are superheroes. Like they know who Wonder Woman is. They don't know her identity, but they know that she's going to show up. Nobody says, "Oh my God, that woman can essentially fly through the air."
Right.
Like it's a world where that kind of stuff and those types of people exist, which is a baseline that excuses some of the lunacy in the movie. The sequel you would expect at the end of the movie, the detective says they're watching the news, and they say these women are called the Heroic Trio, and Wonder Woman's husband, who now knows that she's Wonder Woman and knows that she's part of the Heroic Trio, basically they joke that he named them. So you figure the next movie is now the Heroic Trio exists in this city, and some new villain rises, and they're going to fight the villain, right? No. The next movie is a post-apocalyptic story where the world has been destroyed and the city is under threat, and its water supply is going to be taken away. So the Heroic Trio has to fight to save the city's water supply. Like, it's ridiculous, and it's just a whole other world. It's the same thing. Like if you like the Heroic Trio, you'll enjoy Executioners. Well, it's so surprising and bizarre, and either that works or it doesn't work.
Uncle Al just loves end of the world movies.
Yeah,
he wants to see what happens after that.
I guess for me, like going back to the baby danger part of this film, I guess when the baby was dropped and you see like the blood spurting out of the back of its head, I feel like that wasn't repulsive enough, or it felt flat to me. Like it felt like, oh, this baby got hurt, so let's move the story along. Whereas like if we want to talk about like child danger in films, like when the little boy gets hit by the truck in like Pet Sematary, like that has impact. Whereas like a scene like this scene in this movie, it didn't feel impactful to me.
Well, that's fair. I mean, the baby is basically a plot device. It's not like we get to know the baby or we know who the baby's parents are. Like, it's supposed to be upsetting that the baby died.
Well, there's also that scene where there's
also upsetting it's her fault. So,
well, and there's also that scene where they're in the cave or they're underground or whatever, under the ground, and there's 18 babies, all hanging in cages, and the evil guy's walking by, and one of them's still awake, and he just flicks something and drives 3 needles into the neck of the baby or something. I don't quite know what was going on there. Maybe
I guess very casual. That's kind of what I mean. Like you in a typical film, you would expect this, like, it's not just offhanded, like, oh, I'm gonna flick these things and the next scene rolls in. Like there should be a little more impact, like, oh, this is like a serious thing. Whereas this I don't know. I guess I'm not having explaining.
I have an explanation for it that you don't really see unless you see the original uncut version. So basically there's 3 main things or 4 main things in the movie that you don't see in the cut that is the 85-minute cut. One of them I mentioned where Cow's finger gets cut off by Michelle Yeoh, and he looks at it and smells it and eats his own finger. It doesn't grow back or anything. He just eats his own finger. He's just a monster.
Come on.
Fine.
Now I wish I would have watched this version.
There's a scene where I think it's the thief catcher, Chat. She distracts him with birds, and like he starts running around and batting at the birds so that she can sneak past to confront evil. Yeah. Well, if that scene continued in the uncut version, he actually grabs one of the birds and shoves it in his mouth and eats it.
Okay.
So already you got 2 scenes of him eating stuff.
Right.
Now the real big thing about the babies, and that's the thing that you go, okay, that's kind of disturbing. There's a flash at the end of the movie when they win, where there's a big flash of like all their different pasts and all the different stuff that the villain has done, and you see there's just a few. I mean, they can't be more than a second or 2 shots in that montage, that rapid montage of basically it looks like a bunch of kids, like 6 or 8 years old, sucking on human bones and eating body parts. And that you see that's more clearly.
Yeah.
Well, you see that more clearly in the unedited version. And what happens, and this is why I guess you're not supposed to be so bothered. Basically, the evil master has kidnapped these babies and he's fed them humans. So they're already doomed. They're already evil. And right before they confront evil master in the underground cave, they actually, in the unedited version, they actually find all these kids. And they're like crawling around, and you don't really see them eating the flesh and stuff, but they're clearly they're doing something wrong. And the women are like, well, we have to kill them. So they actually throw grenades at them and they blow up. And there's all this stuff with like close up of the little kids peeing their little diapers.
God.
Like literally, you watch the pee come out.
Listen to him hackle. He loves this.
It's ridiculous. But the movie is supposed to establish that these babies are evil. They've been kidnapped and doomed. I think that would answer your question more about why am I not emotionally more attached to these babies. Now, that said, the baby that dies because Chat kidnaps it as bait and then she screws up, that's not an evil baby. That's the one that's supposed to get you. But also the whole thing is melodramatic music, and the doctor's there, and the one tear comes down Wonder Woman's mask and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I guess I wanted a little more time to focus on her guilt about not being successful about saving the baby. Like it's just like she's like, oh yeah, I didn't do it, and then it goes. Like there's there's no dramatic pause to like.
It's less than an hour and a half. You're right. They don't cover everything.
Uncle Al, if we put in everything that your movies would be 4 hours long, because you want everybody to wallow in their sorrow and their pain. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for pain.
She killed a kid. Of course, I want her to.
Well, not on purpose. Not on purpose, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. One thing I will say is, because I wasn't watching subtitles, because normally when I'm watching subtitles, what happens is I concentrate on the subtitles. I'm looking, I'm reading and I'm trying to keep an eye on what's going on. Because there were no subtitles, it now allowed me to look around the screen and to see some of the set design and some of the stuff that they were playing with. And I know they don't have a lot of money because the sets all kind of looked, fairly simple. They had that hospital set with all these weird nurses walking around, looked like nuns, but they were nurses. The scientist set. Michelle Yeoh's husband, the guy playing her husband, was the scientist making the invisible robe. His set had a big giant boiler or something in there.
Yeah,
the papers,
vaguely industrial machinery.
something just chunking away. But shadows are coming through the windows, different directions, and ceiling fans are blowing, and papers are constantly just flopping around. And there's one shot in there that just blew me away, and it's when Wonder Woman goes to that apartment complex, and that crazy lady is reading, I guess, her fortune or something, or her past. There was a lady on a balcony doing some crazy stuff, and it's that pink umbrella, and you see the kids are blowing bubbles off the top of the apartment complex. But the way it looked beautiful, the way they photographed it, because they were these little bubbles were out of focus and just floating in the screen, and I just thought it's some pretty stuff going on in this film that's completely low budget and completely out of its mind. You talked about the woman on the barrel that she lights the dynamite and then she vaults up into the building. Some really beautiful shots that I was able to kind of pay attention to because I wasn't reading subtitles. I just thought it was beautiful.
I think that's a trait that's shared by a lot of these movies. They can definitely make the most of their budget. And some of these movies, honestly, some of these movies I'm sure will come as choices for you in future episodes. You won't know till you pick them, but they have very, very striking imagery. Like the people who make it may not have a lot of money, but these guys know what they're doing. And, and again, like John Woo and Choi Hark, and a number of them went and made, like I think Choi Hark came over and made 2 Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. Like they did get to make movies with more money, but it's the zeal and the creativity of it, I think, that really. I froze.
No, you're
there.
good.
I'm back.
Yeah.
But I think that the movie's visuals are bonkers and enjoyable, and I'm glad that the dubbing worked for you and let you enjoy that more. Because I mean, I've seen this movie a whole bunch of times. I hadn't watched it recently, but I've seen it a whole bunch of times, and it's just fun, even though it does have babies' deaths that aren't mourned enough for Al's satisfaction.
That's right. Well, nobody mourned. Yeah, exactly, mourned, or they weren't. Their pain wasn't. They get over their pain quick, no question.
It was
they
super melodramatic. I think that's what it was.
Oh,
it's just
this thing starts with some.
Just give me a little bit of like realism and heaviness to like something like that.
That Wonder Woman tear, like the cheek, the Wonder Woman tear down the cheek wasn't enough.
Him catching her tears.
How about the butterfly?
The most melodramatic stuff to me is the Invisible Woman. I can't remember her character's actual name, but Invisible Woman and her boyfriend, the scientist, and the scientist is made the invisibility cloak that she steals because at the beginning of the movie, she's working for Evil Master, who, again, as you know from his name, is not a good guy. And so she's the one who's kidnapping the babies. Should go ahead and say no spoilers there. But her boyfriend is making this, and apparently when you're making this invisibility cloak, not only is your office super windy and papers fly everywhere, but you're going to die, right? And you're going to die, I guess, from nosebleeds or something. And he's fighting to finish the cloak because it doesn't work in the daylight. And Evil Master is like, I just need the cloak already. I need you to kill him. So all of the stuff where her boyfriend is dying and she's trying to save him and convince him to stop working, and he's just it's like it has no relation to actual science or even relationships. It's reality. So melodramatic. It's so reality. Ridiculous. Yeah. But the wind blowing, like you said, is perfect. It's over the top melodramatic.
It's everywhere.
It's like Douglas Sirk action movie or something. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but beautiful. The stuff is I know. Even the hospital had that weird, dreary. But anyway, but the voices added to the enjoyment because, like I said, I was able to just kind of get into who was talking at the time, especially the young girl with the gun and the motorcycle. I thought she kind of held it all together. But anyway,
I kind of think we need to talk about the final boss battle where
that was pretty good.
Yes, please.
Where Evil Master was blown up. And he walked out of the fire as a flayed person, or had all his flesh burned away, and grabbed a hold of Michelle Yeoh to
that must have made you happy.
The other 2 heroes,
right? I mean, that's very Terminator.
It was probably
very Terminator. Yeah.
It's probably my favorite scene in the film.
Well, and he ends up.
I thought that it would be your favorite scene of the film, and also it's one of those things. It's stop motion and
Right.
puppets, and you're not going to confuse them with a real skeleton with burned meat on it attacking them. But it's very confident and hysterical and bizarre, and I like that's what I want to say. The action in the movie is so over the top and crazy, and it has the wirework fights, and it has martial arts and swords and physical combat and all this stuff for a moment before it turns into more flying around and all that stuff. But at the end of the movie, you have this big fight and you blow up the villain, and you think he's dead and you think we've won. And if you've watched the extended cut, you know there's no more babies to save because they've already died screaming and peeing on themselves and stuff because they were evil. And then this thing walks out of the fire and doesn't just become the final boss battle that they have to fight him. He actually turns Michelle Yeoh into a puppet. So that's kind of cool to shoot it that way because you don't have to make a puppet. You just literally make a costume with a bobbly head of
that she wears
of evil
it's like,
master burns. And and then she's like, so she's punching them. You know, he's controlling her body, all that kind of stuff until at the end he his face is screaming and his brain explodes and they win. That's the ultimate expression of that lunacy kind of action.
Well, I think that's also the final melodramatic moment. Like, how does she make his brain explode? Oh, she was remembering her dead scientist boyfriend and her love for him and the plants that he wanted to see. Love won. You know, it made Evil Master's brain explode. So it's just like the icing on the cake in terms of melodrama.
That's what made his brain explode? I didn't catch that.
That's what I got from it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, they don't win. Like, they don't defeat him, because if they defeated him physically, they would have killed Michelle Yeoh, which we've learned with all this, the relationships that they have in the past. They're all trying to save each other, and they are all trying to rescue. This is clearly all three of these women came from extremely abusive situations. Like even Maggie Chung's character, even Chat, she says something like, you know, I left after 3 years and it took me another 10 years to get back to myself, or something like that. So, you know, when they're fighting Michelle Yeoh and they've all reconciled and now she's literally wearing their villain, I didn't think the movie was they're gonna have to kill her, because they redeemed her, and then it feels like the beginning of a franchise. I'm surprised they only made one sequel, because they could do a lot of stuff with this.
Yeah. Okay, but I gotta go back.
I think love wins is the message, and that's all very silly.
You just said something that reminded me of something in the film. You said the babies were evil, so all those babies that were hanging in the cages ended up being evil babies?
Well, I think because he fed them human flesh, which again,
so
I can't explain why, but basically that curses them. Because when they die, they've unnaturally aged. They're literally like, they find a bunch of 6-year-olds sitting around noshing on like
flesh.
legs and arms.
Because there's a scene where the young girl drops grenades down the tunnel to blow up the evil guy.
Yeah,
right. And I'm going, wait a minute, all those babies are down there. She's blowing everybody up. So
that is the biggest plot hole, if such considerations even apply to this kind of movie.
I don't know how it works in this one.
Because they have already blown up the babies. They have already killed the babies that are now like unnaturally aged child monsters. That's literally that sequence is cut out, because otherwise, you think like, wait, are they rescuing babies? Well, no, there's no babies to rescue, because they've already been doomed and destroyed. So
that scene happens after the baby killing in the one you're talking about. When she's dropping the grenades, she's doing the James Brown, dropping the grenades down the holes.
Yep. She's trying
the babies are already dead.
Evil Master. Right. The only thing down there is Evil Master, and I don't remember exactly when in that his henchman Cow, the finger eater. I don't remember exactly when he dies, but yeah, Evil Master is. Meanwhile, let's talk about it. The Evil Master has some sort of secret lair where he's trying to conquer China, and it's literally under a manhole. It's just
right underneath the
silly.
hospital, right there. It's right there. I mean, right. And that's what I mean about the wire work. She kicks the manhole cover, and you see the wire just it's just right there. I mean,
you see it when the motorcycle spins as well, and the
motorcycle spin, and when Wonder Woman throws whatever those bracelets are that match her tattoo with her sister. I guess it's her sister. Those little flying triangle blade. Triangle bladey things. Batshit crazy, but I loved every second of it. I have to say, I just really enjoyed this one. I think everybody should check this one out. I mean, and Michelle Yeoh goes on to do. She did a Hidden Tiger, Crouching, whatever. What is that?
Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Yeah.
Right, that's her, right? That's all wire
That is
work
her,
too. Yeah.
That's her and Chow Yun Fat, who we
Yeah.
talked about earlier.
Listen, I love those Hong Kong, The Killer, and all that stuff.
Maggie Chung, who the thief catcher character, she was in. I don't know if you guys saw Hero, that Jet Li movie.
No, yeah, I know what you're talking about, but no.
Fantastic, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, kind of big, epic, early 20th century Chinese historical period movie. But yeah, these are really big movie stars.
Yeah, very engaging. I thought they were great. Of course, the husband gets blown up 18 feet in the air. He's in the hospital with a broken leg for a week, and then he just shows up again all fine. Everything's good. What did I miss in between there? There must have been something that happened.
I assume that what Uncle Al mentioned, that love heals everything. It couldn't heal cannibal babies, but it could heal broken bones, and it could blow up demon brains or whatever.
Well,
this movie is fun. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Al, what about you? What did you think?
I enjoyed it, but I would definitely recommend watching the dub and not watching the subtitle version.
Yeah, normally I'm completely against that, but it worked perfectly for this. It was great.
I think maybe I think first viewing dub, and then if you wanted to see it again, then maybe do the subtitle. But I mean, I enjoyed it. I would watch it again.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm curious about the sequel. I think that sounds really interesting too. So.
Yeah, it's another 80-some minutes. Executioners, ridiculous action. It's fun.
Can't wait.
I don't know that we need to do another episode on it, but it's fun.
Now, when you said you didn't see any Hong Kong films, you didn't mean John Woo films. Were you talking specifically this genre, or do you mean John Woo as well?
John Woo is one of the big Hong Kong filmmakers that came out of this era, making movies like The Killer, and Hard Boiled, and all that stuff in Hong Kong. And when China took over, it's not like if you made movies in Hong Kong, you couldn't make movies anymore. But there was a lot of concern and questions, and well founded, that such a big change was going to mean we can't make these kind of movies. We can't make the movies we want. And these movies were international sensations, so Hollywood came calling. And John Woo did a bunch of movies in America. He did Mission Impossible 2, and of course the most John Woo movie he made of all of his American movies is Face Off.
It's a classic.
Because it's just ludicrous, and it has all of his signature, guys pointing two guns at each other, one in each hand, and slow motion doves flying around and all that. Flying in a
church. Oh my God! Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like that paper scene, or the scene where the boyfriend's dying and the flowers are growing and the butterfly lands on her arm and papers. I'm just like, this is gorgeous. This is
I mean,
it
John
takes
Woo
such.
Went back to,
I can't even imagine somebody like doing that, and being able to sell that stuff. You look at it and you go, how can anybody get away with making that film? And they do.
Well, what's funny is that some of these guys, like John Woo, went back to China and still make movies, and they make gigantic movies. I don't know if you've seen Red Cliff. It was released.
I know about it. I've never seen it.
2.5-hour movie. It's a period film about a famous giant battle. The Battle of Red Cliff, which is a big known battle in Chinese history. And the 2.5-hour version of the movie that John Woo directed, it's nonstop action, and it's huge scale. That's the thing about making these movies in China. If you want to have 4,000 soldiers marching at 3,000 soldiers, you get 7,000 extras. And you can put them on the field in costumes, and you can do it. Not that they don't use CGI and stuff, but you actually can make literal casts of thousands. But what's funny is that Red Cliff, the 2.5-hour movie, is an exciting nonstop action movie. But the original cut, which is available as Red Cliff Part 1 and Part 2, basically restores all the story. And it's much better. It's not nearly as melodramatic, but it has, it has a love stories, and I'm like Mulan, like I'm a woman pretending to be a soldier to protect my family, and a male soldier, all this kind of stuff. But that's a much bigger movie than John Woo ever made as a Hong Kong filmmaker, and as big as Face Off or Payback or any of those other giant movies that he made in America. So these guys are still making movies.
Now, let me ask you this: is the sentimentality that's in these films like this? There's a song that plays at the beginning and over the credits, right? I have no idea what the song is. Is this cynical sentimentality, or is it actual sentimentality that these directors and the people there?
What you're talking about is canto pop music, which is, I don't know that much about the actual artists and musicians, but it is a lot of what, you could say is schmaltzy, balladeering kind of stuff, like a lot of K-pop stuff. is bubble gummy like that. So
Yeah.
it's not supposed to be a joke. It's supposed to be dramatic. And as I said, it's Anita Mui's songs. Not all of her songs are her songs, but Anita Mui songs. It's like as if Celine Dion was also the star of Titanic kind of thing.
Wow. Yeah.
Like it's just a really big thing. And that I think that is a cultural thing. Americans can be more cynical about stuff like that, especially in the 90s when everything was edgy. And so that might have seemed silly or dorky or overwrought.
Well, it's everything.
Or
There's even just some of the looks that people give each other. There's that scene in the meeting room that the cops have at the beginning when the invisible lady's walking through and crushing the cans, and guys are just looking at each other, making the goofiest, like, yeah, exactly, like it's a silent film and they have to really project what they're feeling inside, and yet it's just and the guy playing the lead detective who is paying off, I guess, the thief $500,000 whatever to get his baby back or to find another baby.
Chief of police, yeah.
The chief of police. He's like that scene where they're having the gunfight and he's stealing people's guns and grabbing their vests and doing all this goofy stuff, right? They're playing it up like they're all kind of silly. And
yeah, it is.
Yeah. I
silly.
guess, and they accept it. So.
This isn't like, not inspired, but this isn't based on like a manga or anything, is it?
No, it feels like a comic. It honestly feels like, except for some of the extreme baby endangerment that we talked about, it
Not
feels
enough
like a
for
comic
Al.
book inspired thing. And it's not based on a comic book. It's actually an original script. But, like, it's definitely pieces of things that you're familiar with that you've seen before all around the world. I mean, The Matrix is an original movie that is, and I mean this as a compliment, lovingly assembled of all different kinds of influences. So this is a movie that also has things that you're going to recognize from other Hong Kong movies, from action movies in general, from melodramatic movies, all that kind of stuff. But there's not some, even though the stuff I told you that's cut out is definitely darker, there's not some manga or animated version or something that's like really completely insanely different, because it's an original property, which is... honestly feels really unusual these days anyway.
Well, I was kind of, when they first said, is Wonder Woman going to show up? I'm like, Wonder Woman, what are they talking about? And, right. is that any relation to Wonder Woman, or is that just what they call it?
Honestly, I don't know if that's just sort of a direct translation, or if that's just something that they went with. It's definitely not supposed to be Diana Prince, or they licensed her from DC or something. In the
subtitles, is she referred to as Wonder Woman?
Yeah, she's Wonder Woman. It's Wonder Woman, Invisible Woman, and Thief Catcher. Those are their names. Okay. Thief Catcher on the motorcycle.
I tell you what, I think one of the blurbs I read is this is the original Charlie's Angels, right? This is more kick-ass than Charlie's Angels. They're not bad. I like the trio. So just not fun. Dark. Never dark enough for Al. Al always needs dark.
It's got to be a black hole.
Hole of whatever, nihilistic, whatever. But
I'll tell you where to find those deleted scenes, and that will maybe. I don't know if it'll warm your heart. It'll cool your heart.
It'll help him sleep at night. It'll help him sleep at night.
Seriously, once you see those babies pissing themselves as they die, I think that's what you're looking for.
That's exactly what he needs. So, all right. So here's what we'll go. We'll go the next. I think that's great. I highly recommend the film. I think it's fantastic. Cheesy.
Cool.
It starts with that real estate agent just being a total goofball. That the chief of police was a goofball. Kind of all of them are goofballs. It's I love the kitsch and the cheese that everybody just accepts as, it's just there. Nobody questions it. There's no cynicism in the film except for the evil guy. He's a nasty bastard. But
I think he's supposed to be immortal, so he's probably been around long enough that he's like Uncle Al. He's seen everything.
But like you mentioned, the skeleton scene is the skull head that they did. That's what they animated with the eyes and all that. That was pretty funny. But that was an interesting thing to see her wrapped in that and fight. It's and I got Terminator vibe, the whole thing when he's coming out of the fire.
Sure.
So it's just great stuff. Good. I made a good choice on that one. Yep.
I think you did. You made a really good choice. Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you. We've watched a lot of different movies. So far, and we're going to watch a lot more different movies, all different kinds of tones and from different places and all this kind of stuff. The gold standard movie that you really enjoyed the most is obviously 1313 Cougar Cult.
It's no doubt.
How do you think this movie compared? Are you more likely to watch this movie again or 1313 Cougar Cult?
Is this going to be?
Moving on to
are we going to do this now at the end of every one of these? Every movie's compared to 1313 Cougar or whatever that is. 13. No,
just because that was the last episode.
Here's what I'm going to say.
I'm not going to say anything again.
The truth is, I cannot get that film out of my head. Okay,
I know.
And that's a bad thing because it's horrible. Right? No, I love this film.
Seen anything like that movie, Ralph?
I can't. I just what I wish I had seen is Al's glee that whole week that this was going on. He must have been, because he knew. He set me up so well for that. I can't even be mad. It was beautiful. It was well played. It was well played.
Yep.
And
I felt like
movie,
I was walking on sunshine, Ralph.
It's totally true.
Felt like he was gliding over the piss of dead babies.
That movie haunts my dreams now. It haunts me every time I take a shower. I'm thinking, oh shit. And I go out. The other day I took the hose back in because it's winter and cold. I'm thinking about the hose. And I got a whole idea about cutting. I haven't even cut
your dreams. I assume that means you wake up rubbing yourself, or something.
I wish I looked like those guys. I don't look anything like those guys, but holy crap. No, that's in there. But no, this film, that's our rating systems. 1313 Cougar, what is it? Third Cult? And this.
Yeah, because you don't remember the name.
This is better than that. All right, enough. I always do this. Enough. All right, let's move on to the next 4. Now it's time for 2 movies, 4 words, brought by Uncle Al and Drew. See, I don't trust. I'm feeling like I don't trust anybody anymore. Resort, sassy, buxom, arousal, football, CIA, dancing hostage. Football, resort. I'm not going to go for what I would normally, which be buxom, arousal. Forget it. I'm done. I want this one. Football, CIA, dancing hostage. And the winner is?
You've selected my film again.
No, is that 2 in a row or 3? What is that? 2?
I think it's 2.
2, yeah. What is this one?
Row. This is another movie that's really definitely something. I mean, maybe you've seen it, but it's definitely not the kind of thing that most people have seen. It's a little movie called
Other Way.
Buffalo 66.
Oh my God, I've never seen it, and I want to see it.
It's a one-of-a-kind movie from Vincent Gallo, a one-of-a-kind filmmaker who, when he's not offering to sell his semen for 6 figures so you can have genius babies, is making genuinely original movies. They're not for everyone, but this movie, I saw it in the theater. It's got all sorts of crazy stuff happening in it. It's one of the few movies. There's actually Kodak took a high saturation still film and made motion picture film for him at his request. So most movies aren't ever going to look like this movie. Oh wow! And I think I don't know if you'll enjoy it or not, but
I want to see the words again. I want to see CIA dancing, because I know a little bit about this film. I think there's a famous blowjob scene in this film.
No, that's
the Brown Bunny, another Vincent Gallo original, which is a lot of boring, and then Chloe Sevigny performs oral sex.
Has he been doing anything else, or is this? He's not in a commercial. I see a commercial that I thought was Vincent Gallo. Has he been in other films that he directed, but that he's in?
I think he was in the Freeway sequel, Freeway Confessions of a Trick Baby. I think he was a transgender priest or something. I don't know. Wow. He's done acting and he's done his own movies. I have no idea what he's up to now, but since you picked the movie, I'll do a little bit of research and find out.
Me too.
Maybe he'll be available to come on the show. Who knows?
I'm actually looking forward to this. And I guarantee you, I'm going to like it better than 1313 Cougar Cult. Okay?
Well, it does have numbers in the title, so hopefully you won't mix them up. But
I may not. So you don't think I will, Uncle Al? You think I'll?
No.
I'm going to go
already
back.
peaked.
I don't trust you anymore, Uncle Al. I should have known
I'm trying to.
With a name like Uncle Al, I should have known.
I'm trying to make up for that, and you keep.
I know. I can't help it. I just use the words that say something to me. So this is good.
I am using the words that say something.
Well, because I was begging, but you twisted it against me, which is unsettling. It's unsettling that happened.
It was right up against you, really.
But I guarantee you, I will like this one better than 1313 Cougar Cult, which I'll never forget the name now. Thank you I'm repeating it. All right, guys.
Al, have you seen Buffalo 66?
I have not.
Oh,
all right. So exciting for everyone.
It's very good. Very good. All right. Well, I look forward to the next week. You guys have a safe week.
Thank you too.
And we'll see you on the next one. All right. Cult Films Rage. cult films rage? What did I just say?
I don't know.
They do rage, but I meant rule.